Viewers, you are still watching the Be Your Best program on Smart 24 TV with your life coach, Julia Storage. I'm here with Pastor Joshua Mugabi from Watoto Church. He's in charge of family issues, including parenting. So we felt he's best fitted to discuss generational wealth and parenting. Issues of parenting that affect us from perpetuating passing on of wealth to the next generation. One of the things that we touched on was on the issue of conflicts, which in Africa is so rampant in terms of passing on wealth to the next generation. At times, even the widows are deprived even before the man is buried. Yeah. So how should we address this challenge?
Wow. We've talked about mindset change, but we also need heart change. What do I mean heart change? Because some of the outplay, displacing widows, stealing property from others, being crooked, is a problem of the heart. My heart is empty, and because empty, I try to fill it in, but yet the things that I'm trying to fill it with are not the things that satisfy us. Because I believe God created us to work. He created us to add value. And He created us to grow in wealth little by little, one after the other. But sometimes when your heart is dissatisfied, when your heart has greed can't be satisfied. It's like the grave. The grave never, it doesn't matter how many people you bury, graves will still be made for more. There's that insatiable nature. So until we are changed in our hearts, where we say, hey, whether I have much or little, I'm content. All right? And contentment does not necessarily mean that I don't pay attention to what other opportunities are there. Contentment is appreciating, okay, this is where I'm at, this is what I have, I'm okay with what I have, but I have a dream and I know how to get to the next level. So that is key. But conflicts arise because, again, there's jealousy. Your children, why should you have it when me, I don't have it, all right? And we think that the more of this we have, it will solve our problems. But our problems are not necessarily solved by having more land. Ultimately, we'll all have. Our real need will be, like Sunday said, 3 by 6. That is the real plot we will have. But you could probably have lots of land to your names, but it's not producing anything for you. It won't help. And we forget that when wealth has been put in a family, it's not for division. It's for the well-being of the people that belong to that family. And we need to be asking ourselves, what's the best way to make use of what we have? All right? And those resources are, in addition to the physical things we have, it's the people resources. Sometimes we forget that people that are in our family are part of the wealth that God has given us. So you will find a family has doctors, has lawyers, has people that can do manual work and the rest. But sometimes because we value life by what certificate do you hold, which school did you go to, we despise them. Yet they are key. They're important people. And so, of course, now we're in a class where we have to hire funeral services, all right? And we feel more posh by hiring funeral services, which is great, is very convenient, yet we're despising the people in our families who were skilled in
burying.
Yeah, in doing those tasks, we looked down upon them. So now we are left alone, we have to hire somebody else. So we must learn, okay, what are the resources God has allowed to be in our family? How do we best use them? I was listening to a show one time, and said, with us, with the culture of subdividing land, a time will come when the only land that we can share is a square centimeter. What produce can you give out of one square centimeter? Yet, sometimes you find people, their parents left, let me say, 50 acres of land. They fought and sold. And what is happening of them? Because you don't have the capacity to create wealth and to maintain wealth, it doesn't matter whether you sell for 5 billion, you need only a few years to get back to where you were before the land was sold. So, if we are to be greater parents, and also if we are to be greater family members, we must be asking ourselves, how do I gain the capacity to create more wealth? I don't have to fight for my father's stuff. I can create my own. If my father has left something, it's not for me to just run it down or sell it and have nothing to do with it, and say, how do we use these resources in honor to make sure that his dreams and aspirations, his legacy is extended? But sometimes that's not the way we think, because our hearts are wrong. We were wounded, all right? We were injured, maybe by the words of our parents, and you know, sometimes some families are not as ideal as we want them. You have a stepfather, stepmother, uncle, and the rest, all right? You have stepbrothers and stepsisters, and we are all in one pot. Definitely, some are hurting. They are choosing your mother of bewitching, all right? Your mother is choosing of stealing. And so all those different things. So when that pain in the heart is given an opportunity to deal with wealth, the pain from our hearts is extended to that wealth and becomes a bitter story. So we need to learn to deal with that. So again, how do we find healing? There has to be forgiveness. And there has to be pursuing a higher purpose, which is beyond ourselves. So those are key things that must happen in families. We must guess, okay, fine. I know, and I think there's been a popular WhatsApp, 100 years from today. I don't know if they've received it, but 100 years from today, where you live will be owned by people. They may be your relatives, but they don't want to know whether you ever existed.
They have sold already.
They could have sold, they could have kept, but they're so detached from you. So when we have all the things that, it makes a difference. But one person challenged me and said, you know what? Let me use the example of my Madvani family. They did not necessarily begin so great, but in their heart of hearts, they began to say, let's do something that will be generational. Let's do something that will pass on. So you go to do business, your son knows what you're doing, how you're doing, what are the details, what are the game changers for that business, and you pass that on. And your sons, yes, they've seen superstars in the world, but you have their heart that they're not trying to be like the superstar. They're saying there's value in what Dad is giving. There's value in what we have, and I must protect it.
Fantastic. That, I think that's really hitting the nail on its head, because it goes towards the preparation we must give the next generation to inherit from us. Why is it that some nationalities and cultures are able to perpetuate wealth, but the indigenous Ugandans and Africans are not able to? So there are probably more we need to do in order to develop that culture. How about your views about wills, writing will to minimize that conflict? I think there is probably also a gap in that regard.
Yeah, I think we didn't grow up in the culture of writing wills, but we must learn to write wills. Okay? And I've listened to some people, and part of the problem why some people struggle in writing their will, of course, belief system that when you write a will, you are inviting death on you, so you may not be lucky to survive. So we must have a change in mindset about the will, all right? But others, the reason they find difficult in writing a will is they don't know how to resolve their personal conflicts. I have 4 declared children, okay? But there are
Others.
6 ghost children, all right? I love all of them, but for social purposes, I put on this face. When do I come through with, you guys, this is the kind of life I've been living, okay? Then for some, okay, they are quite open, but they've not dealt with the important things. They've been hurting the mothers of their children. They've been hurting their own children. Maybe they've been trying to raise a favorite son, and so creating animosity within the house. So it's going to be difficult to write a will because you know if people even discover, they're going to go against it. So will writing is important. The law enforcement is key, but unfortunately sometimes we've also had different things where justice has been miscarried in the process. So it's important to write the will, but it's also important for us to ask what are the laws that govern inheritance. We've had issues with that, and I think Uganda still has issues, okay? So again, it goes back to define family, all right? What is the proper definition of family? Is it the man and the women and the children? Or should it be the man and his wife and the children? But you see, if we don't have that right moral definition, we're going to have trouble. Because now, if you've been staying together for 7 years, it is assumed you are a wife. If I've had children with this person, then it's assumed we must have stuff together. And so that confusion outplays into which one should I give what? And sometimes we've been so detached from the children that we don't know what to do. Tradition says boys are the ones to inherit. What about the girls? What if you only have girls? What if the person that is best fitting to be the CEO of your company, called your family, is a lady? What do you do with that? And of course, there are fears that she'll get married and bring in a D2ther. But of course, we can only say control that. But has your daughter gotten the values that will open her eyes and save her from a D2ther? I think all those are complex things, but we need to write the will. And there's some things that need to be made known. Basic things that is okay, fine. This is what I would love to happen for the rest of my life, for my grandchildren and the children thereafter. There is knowing that, okay, this is how the thing runs. I was talking to somebody and say, you know what? We talk about Idi Amin chasing away the Indians and giving the economy to the Ugandans. And they thought that things just happen. They had no clue what it takes to run a shop. So the economy started falling. Yes, of course there were embargoes and all these different things, but the people down in the shops didn't know what to do, didn't know what was important. So they go in that. So you can still leave your wealth to your children. If they don't know how it works, what's important, how to make it work, it's going to crumble. Because it's a living thing in itself. If it is not well nurtured, it will crumble.
Interesting. Now, the other issue is you talked about parents fearing to talk to their children
Yes.
on how they generate wealth
Yeah.
because of the way they got the wealth.
Yes.
And could it also be possible that financial literacy
Yeah.
can help in building lasting wealth along the chain?
Yeah, I think financial literacy is key. Again, I grew up in the city, so some things I may not necessarily be quite knowledgeable, but with time begin to listen to other guys that are knowledgeable. Like one of the things that is talked about Uganda today, one of the things driving the price of soap high is that Uganda is not a raw material producing nation. We have the best, but we are not producers of raw material because we've grown in a subsistence mindset, all right? You dig your little thing, sell a little to survive. Yet, for the kind of level that will give us mass benefit, we must learn to grow stuff on large scale, which we don't know, and also learn to work with nature or to tame nature, because we may have the best soils, but wait until the rain comes to plant, and the sun, and so all those different things. Yet in some places, they've learned we don't wait for the rain. We must make sure the water reaches where we are going. So we must learn. I mean, I'm told Ugandan business people have been given some contracts, like make sure we have 4 tons of goat's meat every month. Yeah, we can begin to do that, but soon we cannot. Because to produce 4 tons of goat's meat every month means this number of goats must be ready for slaughter every month, which means pay attention to how many are conceiving, when. So it's a whole chain. Excuse me. So those are some of the things that we've not learned. We will run around Uganda to look for goats, and I'll be ready to sell. But that's for 4 months. I need to get back to say, hey, Julius, we must begin a chain of goats production. So even my farming, looking after the grass, is key in order for me to grow. So families have failed on that, okay? Because even when we went to agricultural college, we are not necessarily taught in that format. We are taught, produce what you can, somebody will come and buy. And yes, they would come and buy, but they're also not buying with the mindset, I must be able to produce this regularly. So we are detached. And so we need to shift, when you talk about mind shifting, the things that we have, how do we use them? So even as when we have, I want to look after my children, I don't care about my brother's children. Yet with time, they will converge. They will have their own children, and from my name or from our parents' name, they're going to be 100 kids. We don't care who is becoming a teacher. We don't care who's their lawyer. We don't care who's their doctor. We are simply detached. Survival for the fittest. We are shooting ourselves in our feet. We must be able to educate, okay, family needs A, B, C, and D. This is how it is obtained. This is how it is kept. This is how it is sustained. So literacy is important, but literacy in what? Okay, so this smart talk is great, but it's very little. Once in a while, I mean, generally also, there was a mentality of, if I know I'm the best surgeon, I don't teach you the secret of being the next best surgeon. Yeah, because you'll be eating into my trade. Then when I need the surgeon, there's no surgeon to work on me because I kept the knowledge. So there has to be a literacy change. What sells? What is needed? How do we get there? All right? So I was talking to a friend who said, you know what, even rearing animals has a skill, and grass is the most important thing. But sometimes we don't think about it. So it's a whole chain where it's not just me being educated, but helping everybody. So I like these classes that are ongoing on, is it Gold Harvest or Harvest Gold or something? I think that's good, but it must go beyond. I hear of the money being given out, and I think that's good. But when you give, yes, when you give people money without giving them education, and they're receiving money with the mindset of, let's eat and drink, let's be smart, you're not going to get the results that you want. So probably if we spend the money that we have and taught people without giving them money, then probably it will be better. But when you give them money and then you think you're going to teach them, it won't. I don't think it will go far. I'm not an expert on that, but I think we reproduce who we are or what we are.
Now, in terms of parenting, really, how do we, because there seems to be no particular campaign targeting parents with financial literacy, so that teaching goes on within families. Because if the parents are not financially literate, they will not be able to pass it on to their children, who should in turn pass it on to their children, so that all of them will, along the chain, be building onto what the parents had accumulated. And actually, along the chain, as you mentioned, a certain family earlier on, they started in a humble way. But they prepared the children for the long term.
I think, in retrospect, there's a lot of education, finance education in the families, but this is the kind that I think is mainly passed on. Go to school, get good grades, get a lucrative job. That one is the education. I mean, so once you've gotten your education, you're in a good place, you'll be rich. Finished. And so we do everything. We've upgraded it. Find an international school, find a out of Uganda school, and that is it. That's the education we are passing on. That's the literacy campaign we have. Because it worked for our parents. Once you finish your degree, sometimes even before you finish getting a degree, you had a good civil service job. But the population has increased, the resources have diminished. That's why now nepotism comes in, who is who, all right? But also that will diminish, because at the end of the day, the resources are limited, and we are not in the process of creating resources. We are in a consumer mindset. So that needs to change. So people have studied agriculture. Again, we studied agriculture so that there is food for the Queen in England, not for Uganda. So how do we begin to look again? And I think that's why as parents, we need to get back, okay, fine. What is it that will help my children stay up and about and leading and thriving? Okay? We don't often think that way, because we're also under stress trying to survive today to meet the bill on our head. And of course, whoever honored the farmer, whoever honored the teacher, whoever honored the lab assistant. So those were the people who never scored high. So we say, you handle that. And so we need to re-educate ourselves as parents, and then it's okay. These are the things that will help your children. What skills, what talents, and what relationships must they build to go beyond where we are? So it's a process of re-education that we need. But I know there's an education system there's a way we teach our children about finances. But the problem is it's not going to produce the result that we want. And maybe also where we live. How will you teach your children to look after rabbits in a flat? You cannot. How do you teach them to raise chicken in a flat? They cannot. So all those are things we need to see how do we reorient that.
Great. Now, what would be your final thoughts to our viewers on generational wealth and parenting?
Yeah, my great people produce great children. Yeah. So you need to have the character of a great person. And like I said, honor, which means honor God, honor yourself, honor those around you. Value life. Do everything you need to do in terms of valuing life. And change your mindset from living for today because tomorrow you perish. Let us know that there's life beyond today, and let us work towards that. Our greatness should not be measured in terms of how much we've left behind, but how much we've impacted the people. So I think that's the way we need to live. So, but it also begins with a change in your character. Because if you're bitter and miserable, you will definitely do everything within your means to pass on bitterness and misery. Yeah, so generational wealth, remember, it's not yours. We don't own anything. The Bible is clear. He created the heavens and the earth, and everything in it belongs to him. The gold, the silver, the gods, the everything. They all belong to God. We are stewards, not accumulators, not just lucky. We are stewards on behalf of God. And that means something will pass from us to the next, because we've taught the right principles that will help them to grow. So, to me, I think those would be my words.
Thank you very much. Viewers, this has undoubtedly been a very, very fruitful discussion we've had. The good book says a good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. So it is good practice and good manners to not to eat everything, but pass it on to the next generation and put in the necessary safeguards so that even the next generation will have the mindset to continue to pass it on to the generations that follow them. This has been the Be Your Best program with Julia Storage, a life coach, and I've been hosting Pastor Joshua Mugabe from Watoto Church. He's a pastor in charge of families and parenting. Continue watching Smart 24 TV. Thank you very much.